All right, we are back with some Paladin talk. We're going to be covering a couple of different things in this video. I want to talk about Protection Paladin going into Midnight. This is after the first week of alpha testing. The things I'm going to talk about in this video, while I did showcase some stuff yesterday in kind of a very broad favorite parts, like favorite additions to tanks video, this one I want to get more into the kind of the nitty gritty. Now, caveat or disclaimer, I guess, is a lot of things can change. It's early alpha. Blizzard has mentioned they're extremely receptive to feedback, and they're hoping that any kind of pruning that they've done is the right type of pruning. So if there's a concern with something being removed, that maybe they can add it back, and they're not solid and solidified on these changes. Another thing is, like, I'm not a Paladin Giga main tryhard. I'm just someone who really likes playing the class. I've been playing it on live, on and off. I have pushed some seasons with it. I have also left it way down in my character select screen for some seasons as well. So it really has just depended. But without rambling on too much, let's kind of get into the nitty gritty. So yesterday I showcased the kind of my favorite part about the Paladin, which is the new kind of animations or talents in their Templar tree. So what I love about this is it turns your Divine Toll into Hammer of Light instead. And as you can see, I just crit there for 23 mil. And then you're going to be able to spam Hammer of Light a handful of times during combat. As you can see, I'm doing this all from range as well, which is always kind of cool. Obviously, as a tank, you're normally going to be up in melee. If I move up a little bit here, you're going to just kind of see numbers flying all over my screen. Paladin feels really good inside of its cooldowns, which is something that I really like currently. But there are a couple bugs that I'm going to point out here, and a couple of things that are working more or less against it, and some also changes that I think are super convenient. So starting off, Hammer of Wrath was actually changed. It was pseudo removed. It now actually is your judgment when you're in your cooldown. So when you hit Avenging Wrath or Sentinel, your judgment should be turning into, or at least dealing damage as Hammer of Wrath, which should in theory do more damage. But what I like about this change is it no longer bolsters or increases your, I guess, rotation. It instead, I guess, makes it more simple. The one thing that I've always found clunky about Prot Paladin is when you do enter wings, all of a sudden your rotation kind of changes in a way, and you never really benefited from Hammer of Wrath in the way that you do from Judgment. For example, Judgment applies a debuff to your target from Greater Judgment, increasing the damage you take from your next Holy Power ability by 40%. Hammer of Wrath didn't do that, so it's kind of nice that it is doing that now, and it's just like it's always going to do it. So your Holy Power abilities are always hitting a little bit harder. Now, it does mean you're going to be spending a couple more globals on your filler, Blessed Hammer or Hammer of Righteous, depending on what you're playing, but I think this is overall a better change. They've also removed a lot of those like really minor, pesky buffs you had to maintain throughout combat. For example, like Blessing of Dusk and Dawn doesn't really exist anymore. Well, they do, but in different states. You also don't have to worry about constantly Word of Glorying yourself for spell block, which again is also pseudo-convenient. And they've made most of the cooldowns fairly static, which I actually personally have a little bit more of a problem with, but I'll talk about that in a second. Most of your class tree is actually staying the same outside of a couple of things towards the bottom. For example, Vengeful Wrath is now replacing, I believe it was Zealot's Paragon. So Hammer of Wrath deals more damage based on the target's lower health, and Hammer of Wrath should be during your execute. So when you are in execute, you're doing bigger damage based on their health when you're in wings. They've also changed Blessing of Dawn to now be somewhat of a pseudo 5% DR for your group while you remain above 85%, which I think is also pretty cool. I think this would work a little bit better with things like Lightsmith. It adds more value to your different absorbs. It's also probably going to be pretty good with Sacrosanct Crusade, but with my current level on Alpha, I'm not able to play the full tree, and I wanted to play with the right side talents. Blessing of Dusk is also a nice passive DR, which is causing you to take less damage based on your health. So we've seen something similar with like Brewmaster, where the lower health you are, the less damage you take through either stagger or just like flat damage reduction through something like Flow of Chi. One other change that they've added or made that I think is really good is they have removed the consecration component from your mastery. Now, before, you basically had to be standing inside of your consecration to benefit from your mastery, but now it's just a flat block chance, as well as a spell block plus periodic effect block. And of course, it increases your attack power. I think consecration has always been more of an archaic design. I think these type of effects should always lean more towards damage instead of mitigation. I think BDK is still going to have this problem, but for other reasons. Consecration always felt clunky because at least with Death and Decay, you can choose where to place the ability. Consecration always gets put down at your feet, at least when you're using the actual ability, not from like Hammer of Light or anything like that. So this change is really good. The clunky part about Prop Paladin in the past and pretty much up to this point is that not only did you have to worry about getting enough holy power to get a early Shield of the Righteous in combat to actually have adequate armor and damage reduction, you also had to like put down your concentration in such a way and then pull mobs back to it, which again feels weird and archaic. Now don't get me wrong, there's still going to be benefits from standing in concentration. For example, your Vision of Sanctity is going to deal more damage when it's hitting a single target. Things like Searing Sunlight will cause your Avenger Shield to also deal the damage again when you throw your shield, kind of adding a little bit more burst there. You're also going to heal for the damage that consecration does, so there's a lot of benefit to standing inside or having consecration down at all times. Now moving back into your cooldowns, so they have reworked Templar to no longer be affected by Eye of Tyr, mostly because Eye of Tyr doesn't exist anymore, which I think is a great change. I thought Eye of Tyr was always like a terrible ability, even back in Legion when it was introduced as a Legion artifact. I've never liked it then, don't like it now, and I'm glad it's gone. But them making Divine Toll the trigger now for Hammer of Light feels a little weird. And this is a common criticism of this kind of new rework, is that there are times where a player might opt in to hold their Divine Toll as an AoE silence, as a way to interrupt a mob, a boss, etc. And now you're going to be incentivized to basically hit it on cooldown so you can benefit from things like Light's Deliverance. So there's a slight issue with that. Is it going to be the end of the world? Not really. You still have access to Avenger Shield, as well as Grand Crusade resetting your Avenger Shield. You also have other kicks in your group, plus Rebuke is a better lockout now. It's going to be 5 seconds instead of 3, which is fairly beneficial. So I can't really get on board with this kind of argument, though I do recognize the criticism, and I'm hoping maybe Blizzard can figure out a way around this. Maybe if when you do have 60 stacks, maybe it just converts your Divine Toll into Hammer of Light so you don't have to feel like you have to hit Divine Toll to proc it. Something like that. They don't need, because Divine Toll basically has to be on cooldown for you to actually be able to use Hammer of Light. So I'm not sure the exact workaround here. I don't think it's as big of an issue as people are making it out to be, but I also don't know what the dungeon design looks like for the first season. We don't know what spell lockouts are going to look like in play. We can theorize about it, but we don't know. One other weird issue is they've removed the cooldown reduction from a lot of these abilities that we have. So we used to have a lot of CDR for Ardent Defender, Guardian of Ancient Kings, as well as our wings. And cooldown reduction to me is one of the most interesting and impactful game designs or class designs that Blizzard can do. I think it's highly rewarding. Being inside of your cooldowns, regardless of if you're a healer, a DPS, or a tank, your cooldowns feel good. You want to be in your cooldowns as often as possible, so cooldown reduction through doing your rotation properly should feel good. Now, unfortunately, Blizzard, not just for Paladin, for other tanks as well, has removed this. So Righteous Protector, for example, now simply just reduces Avenging Wrath by 50%, but reduces its duration by 40%. So while you will have more uptime, it feels kind of clunky. So the other issue is that, well, the one thing I do like about this is that it lines up Avenging Wrath now with your Divine Toll, so you have these really nice 1-minute burst windows. The issue right now is that while it is reducing it by 50 seconds, for some reason, when you have this talented, it actually increases the cooldown when you spend Holy Power instead of reducing it. And so I'm gonna show you that, guys. I'm gonna show you that here. So I'm gonna hit Avenging Wrath first, then I'm gonna hit Divine Toll. And while they're both on 1-minute cooldown, you're gonna notice that Avenging Wrath is gonna actually go up every time I spend Holy Power. So I'm gonna hit Wings here, then I'm gonna hit Divine Toll, and then when I Hammer of Wrath, it's gonna go up to 58. And then when I go to hit Hammer of Wrath again, it's gonna go up to 57. And when I hit Hammer of Wrath again here, it's gonna go up to 54. And it's basically, I'm gonna Shield the Righteous here. I'm gonna Hammer of Light again one more time. Despite me using them basically at the same exact time, one global apart, every time I spend Holy Power here, you're gonna notice that my Avenging Wrath goes up in cooldown instead of going. It shouldn't even be going down. It should be static. It should not be changing, and it is. So there's clearly some interaction that's here that is making it actually still go up. So Divine Toll now has just 15 seconds left, but my Wings still has almost 30 seconds. And so this is making it difficult to test how potent our CDs are going to be, because as of right now, you're basically being punished for spending Holy Power at all. So I find this change kind of weird. I think getting it on a 1-minute CD consistently is good. I think reducing its duration is fine. I wish it was like 30 seconds, if anything, but I would much rather prefer cooldown reduction. And that is my biggest criticism is now there's no incentive to actually hit my buttons properly because I'm not actually getting a reduced cooldown on anything, so I can just kind of do whatever. Something like Resolute Defender was also changed. It's no longer giving cooldown reduction, but instead just reducing or increasing the CD length of Ardent Defender. My problem with Ardent Defender is it lasts for 12 seconds, but it has almost a 1.5 minute cooldown. Ardent Defender is kind of like a very minor use on pull, every pull kind of button, and now being almost a 1.5 minute cooldown, it just makes it feel kind of awkward to use. And so I do have concerns about this, where it's like a minute 24, minute 23 CD, which is just awkward. Like, why is it ever that length? It's mostly being reduced because of Inspired Guard, but it's a very awkward length, if I have to say. And so yeah, there's a couple of things still wrong with Paladin currently, and also because of Lightsmith, it's still under construction. I haven't tested this much, but nothing has really changed when it comes to Lightsmith. So overall, I think the Paladin changes are actually looking good. I think its gameplay loop, feels the same. I don't think it's a valid criticism to say the class is gutted. Avenger Shield is still just as effective. I think Hammer of Wrath being removed / being implemented into Judgment makes the rotation feel more fluid, especially when you're in your CDs. I don't believe the Hammer of Wrath button's actually working. As I'm in Wings now and I'm hitting Judgment, it's not saying Hammer of Wrath, it's just saying Judgment. So I don't know if it's bugged. I don't know if it's working as intended. I'm imagining it's not. Yeah, Paladin is looking sick. Just a lot of bugs. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that Blizzard ends up fixing these bugs before the game goes live in a couple of months. So I'll try to keep you guys updated. Let me know if I missed anything that you find cool about the class or want me to test. It's very difficult to do dungeons right now because the option is spend 30 minutes in queue waiting for 4 other people to join because not many people have alpha, or do follower dungeons, which are follower dungeons, so they have their own problems of their own. They have their own problems of their own. What a phrase. And obviously there's still a lot of bugs. Overall, I think this is one of the tanks that's coming out better than its other tank counterparts going into Midnight, and I'm very excited. I think the rotation feels full. It has 4 or 5 buttons that you're hitting all the time. You feel very powerful in your CDs. Your defensives, you still have access to Ardent, Guardian of Ancient Kings with 2 charges, as well as Divine Shield. I think these are all great things to have. So my biggest concern is just the cooldown reduction no longer existing makes the class feel blander. So yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna rant too long. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.